I met my ex-husband through my cousin. They had actually met and dated for a little while, and then we had kind of become friends and started to hang out after they weren't dating anymore. And I knew the minute that he came over for the first time, because we stayed together, my cousin and I knew from the first time that I saw him when he walked up the driveway that I was in big trouble. And it was like that stereotypical, for me, it was that stereotypical love at first sight, and I was like, yikes. So we just clicked, like we just were friends, we would get along, we had a good time together, and so we started dating. And it wasn't till after we had been dating that I really realized that, or he even admitted that he was a heroin addict. And at that time, I really didn't know what that meant. And so that kind of led to several years of this journey of what an addict was, how that life was lived, and how that kind of affected me. I grew up in a house where fighting happened, and I equated it with, if you fought, that means you were really in the relationship because you had enough passion, enough love to put into it. And so having spouts, I mean, it wasn't anything that I would call ridiculous. And so we'd had a fight, and he wanted to stay out with his dad, and I wanted him to come home. And I got angry, and I said, well, if you're not coming home, then you can just stay out there. And so he stayed out there, and which led to the bigger fight, and he left. And he was gone for a couple days, stayed at his brother's, and I had been out there like trying to talk, like, what are we gonna do? Let's work through this, like, what do you wanna do? And we were on the phone, like, when are you gonna come home? Like, I'm done with this. Like, I know we're fighting, I know things aren't great, but we're married, and people just don't stay out. He said, well, I just don't know. I don't know that I want to be in this anymore. And I said, well, we have so much other stuff. And he's like, well, like what? I'm like, well, we can go to counseling, and we haven't, I don't feel like we've exhausted all of our limits. And he was like, well, why? So I could just come home for a year and go again? And I said, well, then fine. What do you want, a divorce? And he's like, yeah, I want a divorce. And it was in that moment, driving, where it was kind of like this whoosh of, okay, this is my real life. And here I was, a person who never let anybody down, on my way to a birthday party for two little girls who didn't do anything. So it's really easy to let experiences in your life define you, especially when you have that internal struggle of feeling like you couldn't make something work, or you couldn't do enough, or if you had just been better, if you had just done things differently, then this person or this situation would have worked out better. And so for a long time, I let that become who I was. Like, I wasn't enough. And if I would have said things, or if I would have done things, if I would have made different choices, maybe he wouldn't have left, maybe he would have stayed. And so you sit in the what ifs, and you sit in the bubble while everybody watches you. And so you have to put on this face, but at the same time you're like internally like punching yourself and having like this destruction, because you wear that tag of, oh, my marriage failed, oh, I'm divorced, oh, he left. And so you just kind of sit in that. Our experiences make us who we are. They build us into the person that we are, but they don't define us. And if you have something that you're keeping inside, don't keep it inside anymore. I really believe that like the secrets we keep in the dark are the ones that hurt us. And that the more that you bring to the light, and even if it's just for that one moment with that person that you trust, to say, this is how I'm feeling, like bring it to the light, make it real, talk about it. Because when we keep it tucked away, that's when like the enemy takes it over and uses it to hurt us and uses it to harm us. And I would just say, like, be a part of a community. Have your tribe, have your people, whether that's in a few group, a discipleship, a group of women, men that that you trust, and know how important you are when you are someone's community, because you probably don't realize it, but just being that person that someone can talk to or not talk to, just sit next to at the movies or go to the park, not have to talk about whatever their thing is, because they can just be who they are and not what happened to them or what they did or didn't do, is really huge. Is really huge, because I think we live in a society where everybody wants to fix and solve and help, and I am so guilty of this. But just being beside someone is huge, is a big deal, especially if they're going through something or, defining themselves in some negative way.